made clear all along that we're closing schools for a health reason, and in terms of schools, the point we're making, the WHO was making about young people generally, is actually more geared towards younger adults who may think they can still gather in parties and such like. But it applies to all groups. So we are closing schools for a health reason. We have made clear that there is still a requirement to look after some children. We considered, on the basis of the advice we had last week, that that could accommodate young people completing their coursework. On Friday, of course, we had advice around the acceleration of the spread, which led us to the decision about closing pubs and restaurants and cafes, and that has now informed a change in this advice. Now, I've said all along that we are making decisions based on the best advice, in good faith and based on the best judgment, and that advice is subject to change as we go along, and we will be open with people as and when we make changes, which is what I am doing today. People can understand from the different advice that has been given over the last few days that that is the situation we're in. It's why I'm standing here today on Sunday afternoon making clear that we are in a situation where we consider that piece of advice has to change.
So can I speak to this? Has the advice as far as teenagers changed in the last 48 hours, or was it the same as it was on Friday? It's just now you've realised there's this loophole with these SQA things that need to be closed.
I wouldn't describe it as a loophole. I wouldn't describe it. So it's not that the advice, the expert advice on the risk to young people has changed. What changed on Friday and led to the advice on the closure of certain premises was, and the Chief Medical Officer can go into a bit more detail here, as she did at a briefing we did on Friday evening, that the speed at which the virus is spreading has quickened, and therefore we need to do even more to reduce the risks of the places where this can spread, and that is the reason for this aspect of our schools advice changing. It is also the reason why I'm being very clear that while I absolutely understand that lots of businesses and lots of individuals want to be designated as key workers so that their children can be looked after in a formal setting, we must keep the numbers in those formal settings to a minimum, and that's why we're being so rigorous in terms of the definition of key workers. Catherine, do you want to recap a little bit on the change of advice on Friday?
The modelling groups, which are meeting several times a week, met early on Friday to discuss the cases in England, many of whom have been admitted to intensive care. And it became clear, interrogating those data, that actually we were underestimating the doubling time of the virus. So actually, the number of cases was spreading more rapidly than the estimates which had come from China. That means that each individual is infecting more people. So we had estimates of one person infecting 2 to 3 other people, but they're actually infecting more people than that. So actually that acceleration, that explosion of cases is likely to be accelerating more rapidly than we realised, and hence the measures that we discussed, which included closing the schools.
Thank you.
Yes.
Why don't you shut down now if you really want to? Go for a complete lockdown now if you really want to stop the virus and stop the confusion. A lot of people are not understanding 2 metres apart. We're not even doing it in this room. Public are not doing it outside.
Well, look, we will keep under review all of the different powers that we can use and different steps that we will formally take. There has been, when I think back just 7 days, the advice that we have given to people based on the expert opinion about when is the right time to take this advice to have the maximum impact, and we will continue to keep all of that under review. But I say very clearly, I know how difficult this is for people. I don't underestimate that for a second. But there is, in my view, no need for people to be less than clear about what we are asking them to do. Everybody should consider, every time they are planning and coming into contact with other people, whether that contact is necessary. And if it is not necessary, don't do it. So, people should not be, because they're closed, at pubs or cafes or restaurants, but going shopping. You should not be going shopping other than for essential items. And then when you are in a shop, try and keep a safe distance from people, and if the shop is crowded, my advice would be not to go in it. And my plea to companies that run shops selling essential things is that they should have, as I know some do, responsible social distancing policies in place. We're trying to be as clear as possible on the advice that we are giving people, and my feeling although we are of course monitoring this, is that the vast majority of people are complying with this advice. But if we are to have the biggest possible impact in terms of reducing the spread of this virus and saving lives, we need everybody to feel that they have to follow this advice, and that's why I'm taking the steps today to set that out very clearly for people, and we will continue to reiterate and get those messages clearly to people in every way we possibly can.